All right, everybody, how you doing? You're listening to the Midwest Metal Radio Show podcast. Jay Wendell's out and about. So today, you get me. This is Matt Knowles from Insymmetry Creations. I'm one half of the content creating duo that is we're Steampunk Comics and Metal Collide. We've got a couple of comics. We've got the medieval fantasy Tales from Nocturnia, just funded issue 3 on Kickstarter. We also have got the Steampunk Time Travel Heirs of Isildur that also has a 12-track metal album. That being said, you're not here to listen to me. You're here because we got a great guest today. After 7 years, FINNTROLL is emerging from their slumber with a brand new album, Vreth of. Today we have Mathias, aka Vreth, on the show. Mathias, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello out there. I'm Mathias. I'm the singer of FINNTROLL, and yeah, I'm here today to talk about the new album a bit.
Yeah, you know what? Let's get right down to it. Brand new album coming out after 7 years.
Yeah.
It's called Vreth of. Did you feel like you were ever going to get to a point of having a new FINNTROLL album?
Well, yeah, it definitely at some point, it started feeling like it's never going to happen and what is going to happen. But, we have always had quite a long album cycle in that kind of sense. It's been, some of the bands, they like every second year, they put out a new album, then they tour for like 1.5 years, they do for half a year for a new album and, over and over again. But we have had sort of 3 to almost like 4 years between albums usually. So I really have to say, like after, when we started writing something after like 3 years and it didn't really sound like we wanted it to sound, and there was, we took a little break and we went on to do an anniversary tour for the Natford album. And after that, we tried again, and it was like 4 years into, and it still didn't feel right at that point. So at that point, I started stressing quite a bit because we really needed to have an album out, within like 4 years to keep the momentum that we had. But it started, it didn't really just, it didn't feel right, the stuff. So we decided that we'll, take it a little bit easy and write something, on the way, and all of a sudden there's like 6 years have passed, and so time flies sometimes. But yeah, we haven't been inactive in that way because we've been touring quite a lot still, and last year we had at least like 30 shows all over the world, and we haven't been inactive though. But
So
really, the pressure started building up after 4 years. Definitely.
So is there anything from those initial sessions that actually made it onto the album? I know you said that you kind of had a couple of starts and stops. Is there anything from there you're like, yeah, man, we have 2 songs that made the album that are from that initial session, that we ditched everything else?
Yeah, well, we have actually sort of at least 2 songs on this album is sort of from that time. But they're not totally, not like 100%. For example, the song Force, and I think that was the first one that we actually wrote that was like a full song. But when we, last year in the autumn sometimes, we sort of found the red thread for the album, and then we revisited those songs. And Force got a little bit, tweaked, and it got a little bit more like updated version of it, that will fit with the other songs, because that's how it sounded in the beginning, was sort of continuation of the Blood-Swept album, and we really didn't want to do that, so we sort of injected some adrenaline into the song, and it twisted around some riffs. But yeah, there's maybe like 15-20% of riffs from the 5 years ago or something like that in there.
I can tell you, it's funny that you bring up you didn't want to have it be a continuation of the previous album. When I listened to the album, I got the feeling, I felt like I was listening to, if Joktan's Tid was written now, this is how it would sound. There's a lot of callbacks, a lot of the hoompa melodies that made Joktan's Tid, like gave it the charm that it has. I felt like I was listening to some of that, which it was good. It wasn't like I was hearing the same album over again, but it was like pulling those things that really made FINNTROLL what it was back then and brought it into 2020.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we decided to do kind of like a melodic album because let's say like Blood-Swept was quite a riff-based album. And we decided this time that we actually wanted to go back to those melodic elements that we had, for example, on Jaktens Tid and also on the Nattfödd album. So there's quite a lot of both in there, but with with a 2020 sound to it. And also there's even a little bit of the first. There's a couple of riffs there that really could have fit also on Midnattens Vidunder, I think.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm anybody that knows me knows I'm a blast beat fan. Like I love having blast beats on there. So when At Dawn Mettensten starts, I was like, yes. I'm like, that's the way to start an album, because I love it when a band can level it to that extreme, and then you're like, okay, they're pulling it back down to more mid-paced because they want to, not because they don't have the ability to go to that extreme.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
I thought that was a really, really good way to start the album. I was like, ready to just go punch holes in walls and stuff. And
yeah, that was sort of what we were striving for as well, to have, that kind of like, whoa, these guys didn't slow down. And I mean, if you wait 7 years, there's lots of bands that have done the same kind of breaks, and it feels when they come back, they sound a little bit lazy, a little bit like they got old and wanted to slow down. And we decided we definitely don't want that. We want actually to increase it, like go FINNTROLL 120% instead. And especially now we have a drummer that really likes playing blast beats also. So yeah.
That's great right there, man. Blast beats are the best thing. So.
Yeah,
So you mentioned the Forsen song being the first one for this album. I absolutely love the video. And partially, I'm very partial to that because what we do with Heirs of Isildur and Tales from Nocturnia, we actually have some animated videos as well that come out of our comics. So when I see something like your animated video, I'm just like, I could feel it in my heart. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. You have two very different videos, or not. I guess you have the Ormfolk single, and then you have the Forsen video. Tell me about the process of putting that Forsen video together and seeing the animation come together. Does that fit the story of the song, or is the animation something that is its own story in and of itself?
Well, we had this idea of because we are going to have 3 singles out before the album is released. So we really wanted to have something more, than a still for the other 2. So the first one, Ormfolk, was just a still video, and I think that's good because that was a song, that sort of presented the whole album musically, and it didn't need, anything. It didn't need a boost. But we were talking about doing some kind of not just having 2 normal music videos. So we were going back and forth with different styles, what we want to do, and then I just realized that, hey, we have that old. 10 years ago, we released an animated video for Under Bergets Rot from the Niflheim album. So I just said that, hey, what about I contact them and ask if they want to do for this one as well? And they were really interested, 2 Finnish animators, and they were really interested in doing this, especially because their company had gone into sort of these territories more and more, old Finnish folklore, and sort of like shaman kind of influences that they have on their late works. And I gave them the lyrics, and we talked a little bit with Katla, who wrote the lyrics as well, all together, and we came up with this video. And they're really, the story of the lyrics and the video, they go really hand in hand. It's almost like you can see the lyrics come alive, sort of. So yeah, and even though you read them, they are sort of poetry, but still this is the story of what's behind those lyrics, actually, if you read between the lines, sort of.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the video. Like I said, I love being able to see animation and things that expand the universe of what you're trying to do musically and bring it into another medium. So I thought it was really neat.
Yeah.
So you've been in the band since 2006. So you've been there for quite a while, for 14 years. However, when you joined the band, FINNTROLL already had a pretty extensive discography. Jaktens Tid and Visor Sluted and Nattfödd were already out. How long did it take for you to feel like, hey, this is my band now, not just like you've joined this band that already had this following that was already there?
It was really strange because sometimes, when I have had a new band or something, it's taken a while to feel like home. But it was really weird because even though I didn't even speak Finnish when I joined the band, So still, I could feel it, from the first rehearsals. I could feel really like, well, this is a good place. This is my place. This is, and they never sort of pushed me into, to, do, more in the vein that the older singers did or something. I really got like sort of free hands to interpret it though, like the old songs as well. I I tried to keep it true to the old ones when we play them, but I still put my little twist on them always. And I really felt like welcomed straight away. So I think the first, after the first festival already, I felt like, yeah, I'm one of the guys, It's
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, it was really awesome because I felt at home like immediately in the band. So yeah.
Now, were you a fan of the items beforehand? Like I said, like Docton's Tid and Advisor Msuta, were you a big fan of the band at that point? And did you feel like, holy crap, I'm going to get to be in this band that I really like? Or was it, was it more of a business thing? Hey, these are guys that are musicians. I want to go be in a good band kind of thing.
Well, I actually didn't know that they had released. I got the first album. I got it actually. I was trading albums back then in the end of the 90s, and I traded with a guy from Israel, and he ordered like, I think he ordered like four albums from me, and I ordered 3 from him, and he said that I'll throw in 1 extra. You're from Finland and you never heard FINNTROLL, so he threw in the Midnattens Vidundrer, the first album, as like a bonus. And I listened to it, and I really liked actually the album. It was a really cool album, and I was a little bit like a big question mark. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like what is? And I listened to it through the years, but I actually didn't know when I joined the band, because Katla, him and me, we were studying together, and he just knocked on my door one day and asked me if I want to join the band, because the guys had called him and asked, if there's a singer in the school, that's speaking Swedish and that can growl. And yeah, there's one guy, and he came and knocked my door and asked me if I want to join the band, or even go to Helsinki for 1 week and then try out. But the weirdest thing is, because he gave me the other albums I'd never heard about, Jakten's Tid, I'd never heard about Not for the album, or I'd never heard about Visum Slutet. I didn't know anything else than the first album actually. I think I saw the Trollhammaren video once before. That's the only thing, except
Wow.
Outside Midnattens Vidundrer that I did know. And so yeah, I had no kind of idea what I was going into, and I had never even known that they played gigs or anything. But that was also something that the guys said that was actually really cool, because they would have never hired a fan into the band. That would have been strange. So,
That's interesting. That's interesting. So that's wild that you didn't know the history of the band. Was there a point when the guys in the band were like, dude, do you realize you're joining this band that people see as like the forefather of the genre? I mean, they may not have even realized that. I mean, you look at Black Sabbath being the forefathers of metal, and then in the 80s you had Metallica and Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, that were the thrash metal guys. But FINNTROLL truly was the first internationally known folk metal band, and there's been a whole genre that has developed. I mean, there's literally bands. I'm not sure if you know the story of Trollfest, but Trollfest, in their biography, some of the nicest guys out there, but their biography literally starts off with, this band was formed and we sat around drunk one night listening to FINNTROLL albums.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. I know those guys actually. They're cool guys. Espen actually played 1 gig with us on 70,000 Tons of Metal this year. He played the second guitar. Yeah, so it's funny, but because I don't think any of us at that point realized actually that we were kind of this like creating what we did. FINNTROLL has been always like a really down to earth kind of constellation, and I just don't think the guys realized actually how crucial they have been to the whole scene, and even though we might not be considered that much of a folk metal band anymore, especially like if you think about the Bloodswept album, it had like 3 folk riffs on the whole album. But still, I think, looking back on it now, it's we were one of those that really started out, and and also paved way for lots of other big folk metal bands that are out there right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at without a FINNTROLL, there may not be an Elevite, and they were big fans, big friends of those. Like my old band actually was on tour with Elevite on their first tour back in 2006. So you wouldn't have some of these bands that are out there without what FINNTROLL did and being able to integrate the hoopah style into the music and showing people that you could be creative and actually smile. Like before FINNTROLL, it was hard to listen to metal and not kind of like crack a smile, because it's like, how can you listen to an accordion without having a little joy in your life?
Exactly.
I think that really opened up the doors for a lot of the people using flutes and even like Trollfest using saxophones and whatnot in their music. Do the guys, can they look back today in 2020 and kind of look back and go, dang, we were really a part of history, or do they not even want to acknowledge that?
Well, sometimes, of course, I think we have sort of realized that we were there, but, it's still this kind of Finnish way to think that, that this Finnish humbleness. But no, it's strange, and also, as you said, this the whole scene I really like, because also been a big part of the black metal scene in Finland, and and also outside of Finland as well. And sometimes when you are on those black metal gigs, it's so serious. Everything is, you cannot do that, you cannot do that. You cannot have fun during the concerts. It's you come there and you put your arms like this, and and maybe if you like the song, you can raise your fist or something like that. That's like that's and it kind of it kind of sucks. So that's why I like the folk or pagan or Viking or whatever the scene is called, because there's actually people coming there and having fun, and I really like that. Without the band being, because there's also lots of this like party metal bands out there nowadays, and without being a party metal band, you can still come out to a FINNTROLL concert and have fun.
Yeah. So you guys have toured with a lot of bands. Like I said, you just said that you were on 70,000 Tons of Metal, so you got to be with many bands on there. Flesh God Apocalypse, different bands like that. Who's been your favorite band that you've toured with from a musical perspective, and who's been your favorite band that you've toured with from these guys are really fun to be with on the road?
Oh, whoa, there's so many of those. But for example, I really enjoyed, we had a couple of years back, we had well, it's probably almost 10 years now, but we booked, because we back in that 2010 2011, there was all these big Heidenfest, Pagan Fest tours going on, and it became too much of of the folk metal, and it started getting a little bit like a little bit watered down, the whole scene. And there was so many bands that just made folk metal because they wanted to be on those big tours, and it started getting so watered down that we wanted to take a step away from it, from the whole thing. And we actually did our own tour with we had Swarm Up, we had Rotting Christ and Samael, and that was one of the really good tours that I really liked musically as well. It was a really cool package. I really liked that. There were also cool guys in the bands, and we were sharing the bus with Samael for the whole trip, and cool guys. Yeah, really love it. If I would say like the best tour, that would probably be the one we did with Moon Sorrow and Swallow the Sun in the US. And yeah, I don't remember which year it was, maybe 2012, 2011, something like that. And that is one of probably my favorite tour ever. And those three bands really fit really well together as well. And also, to having, to be touring with your friends, that's really cool, really awesome. And yeah, I've probably never had that much fun on a tour.
So speaking about tours, we'll get back to what's been going on this year as far as tours not happening and all that. But
yeah,
let's talk about from a positive perspective. You guys just released your tour schedule for a tour starting in March of 2021 to support this album. I looked at the schedule and I was like, wow, there is not a single day off for over a month. Do you have any concern at all for that kind of touring schedule for, what is it, 32, 34 dates without a day off after having to take such a long break because of COVID?
Yeah, me and Tundra, we were laughing, a couple of years back when we started, playing with the thought of releasing the new album and being out there, that we really would have needed to have like a short mini tour, like maybe 9 dates, from Friday until next week Sunday or something like that, to ease into being in a tour bus again. And when we actually started booking this one, the demand was there, and we just like, screw it, we'll do it, we'll do a full tour. And we were actually offered some days off, but now with the whole pandemic situation, all the money that the clubs are offering, because they don't want to take huge risks right now, so they're a little bit worse, money wise, all these gigs, than before. So we can actually not really afford to have any days off, because you still have to pay for the tour bus and for the crew and everything, even though you are parked on in a gas station in Germany. It's the same. It's the same. You lose money by those. So yeah.
So are you dreading how am I going to physically feel at the end of this tour? Am I going to be able to tour again before 2023 because I've just wrecked my body? Are you like, I can make this happen?
Well, I'm hoping I can make it happen, and I think that it will happen. But we definitely need to sort of take it a little bit easier on this, And we're not like 25 anymore either, so yeah, it definitely will need some some focusing on our side, but still, I'm really happy that we actually could do this many shows. And we said that we don't really want to go over more over a month, because we could have easily done almost 2 months in a row, because the demand was there. But we said that's some kind of limit we have to have on this one. So yeah, but yeah, it will definitely be like a baptism by fire, this one.
Oh yeah. So it's been since 2013 that you guys have released an album. A lot has happened. I know you said that back in the day, because I remember those Heidenfest and Pagan Fest tours, exactly what you're talking about. There were so many bands, there was a boom that it almost became watered down. In that time, since you guys released the last album, there's been a lot of other bands and like a resurgence in really original music that's come out. You've got bands like Windrose and Ayana, and even the Far East in Japan, you've got Wagaki Band that are using ethnic instruments and whatnot from their region to bring about their version of the folk metal sound. Have you paid attention to what has happened in the folk metal scene over this time? Have you been pleased with what's going on, or is that kind of just off to the side in your mind?
Yeah, well, I actually sort of by choice have stayed away from the whole, not only folk metal, but quite a lot, staying away from the metal scene as well, because even though, this past 7 years have passed, I've still been on lots of concerts. And I also have other bands as well. So for some reason, for example, last year, within 1 year, I recorded 4 full-length albums with 4 different bands. So at some point, it became a little too much. So when I'm home and stuff like that, I don't really want to go and search for new metal bands. And I actually kind of seldom actually put on any music right now. It's a little bit sad, but I sort of the music right now has, it's work for me right now. So I'm staying away a little bit, like on purpose, so I will actually start enjoying some music at some point. And I guess next year I will not release. Well, I may probably release something, but I probably won't make a new full-length album next year, because I'm done with all the bands already. So yeah, so I really hope that at some point I will be interested in the scene again. But I really like, as you said, there's like Asian bands that take their folk instruments, and there's from different parts of the world, because also that was a big thing with the Pagan and Heidenfest and all those tours that was going on, and there was bands from Italy or something like that didn't use their kind of folk. They used Scandinavian folk and sang about Vikings and stuff like that, without just for the sake of being folk metal, but you can also, I think you can be folk metal and have an Italian influence. And for example, Italians, they have a really, really rich and bloody history to sing about. So I think there would be, enough. There's just an example, but I really like it when bands nowadays have actually got the idea that they actually can bring their own and don't have to copy other people's folk music, yeah.
So is there a problem? Do you see a problem if a band, let's say an American band or like you said, an Italian band is singing about Finnish history, is singing about things like that? Is that a problem to you? Or do you just say, as long as they are doing it from a genuine perspective and it's not them just trying to go and get onto this quote unquote money train?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. And also, of course, you can sing about whatever you want, but sometimes it's a little bit hard, to take seriously bands that just try to copy, stuff from other countries or copy other bands. That's really what was happening, because it seems like there weren't enough of folk metal bands in the beginning, so they like quickly put a lot of folk metal bands together to fill those warm-up slots on those tours. And that's also it. Sort of, there was such a huge inflation on these like folk bands. So yeah, I sort of wanted to distance myself from the whole scene at some point. That's also probably why the Bloodswept album wasn't really that folky, because we were really fed up with the scene back then.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier in this call too, where you definitely went more to removing the folk styles and going a little more black or a little more hard. And this one almost feels like a callback to Jocton's Tid, which is such a seminal album. Like I said, I was really pleased when I heard it. I'm like, man, that literally, like, I could listen to a song on Jocton's Tid, and I did do that. I went back and listened to that full album and then came back to this one, and I'm like, it really feels like the spirit behind that album was reincorporated into this, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And we have been talking, if we would put, this album in a sort of timeline, this one could actually been the album after the Notfed album.
Yes,
could have been in the little bit longer break between Notfed and Urudes Djup. This album could have fit really perfectly there. So yeah. But I think that time has sort of, enough time had passed, and we had that sort of break from the whole folkish scene, and now the folk took a little bit of a comeback on this one. There's actually there's a full song, Grenas Väg, for example, that is like full on folk from beginning to the end. Forsen has got a lot of those like instrumental folky breakdowns, and yeah, there's lots of this stuff on this album, and I don't know. I think we needed just a break. There was we needed to have a breather there at some point.
So again, let's go back again to 2006 when you joined. Prior to you joining, there was a lot of member switches. There was tragedy in the band. You had the guitarist passing away. There was some issues with the previous vocalist when he left under the terms that he did. Do you feel like the other guys in the band kind of felt relief when you came in and you're like, hey, we have a guy, here's another guy that is showing that he's in this for the long haul and he's going to be a solid force? Did you kind of feel that in them, that you kind of were bringing some stability into the band for him?
Well, yeah, definitely. And, and I also think that me having a little bit kind of more extreme kind of metal touch to my voice, that was also something that they liked as well, that it got a little bit more brutal and a little bit more harsh again. That was probably something also. But it was, I think it was after like 3 first shows or something we played, and the guys, they asked me directly, so do you want to make the next album with us? And I said, yeah, definitely. So I think it was sort of a relief that they didn't have to search for longer, because there were no auditions or anything. There was some people sending some tapes into to Spine Farm back then, but they listened to them, and there was so much was so much crap in there that they were like, oh, what are we gonna do? So I think they were relieved when they could actually have me that was sort of an acquaintance with Katla from before and stuff like that. That it was Yeah, that I could directly from knowing nothing to the band, join the band, and there was no auditioning or anything like that in between. That it was sort of easy process.
So I very rarely use the term family outside of actually my own physical family, but in a situation like this where you've been around these guys for 14 years, do you feel like these are like legitimately like your brothers, like your family members? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do in my life, 5 years from now if they're not in my life. I mean, do you guys have that kind of familial, brotherly kind of relationship?
Yeah, it would be definitely weird, it would feel really empty if I would tell that I'm gonna leave the band or something right now. That would be a big part. It's like, well, it's 14 years and I'm, well, almost 40. So it's 1/3 of my life is invested in FINNTROLL. So I would leave, a big hole, definitely.
Now, do you guys ever, I mean, obviously you guys are going to be on tour for 34 days together. When you're not touring, do you guys ever find yourself like, hey, we're going to go have a birthday party for such and such as little kids, so are you going to come over? Do you guys do things ever outside of FINNTROLL that are not FINNTROLL based? Just, getting together
Yeah,
and
yeah, definitely we do. Well, this year it's been all about FINNTROLL, of course, because we went to the studio in the beginning of the year, and every time we meet up now, for example, I live in another city. I live like 450 kilometers north of Helsinki. So when I go down to Helsinki to meet the guys, it's usually because of a reason. For example, I went last week to record a new music video, for example, and before I've been there to do promotion and stuff like that. So it's been so now right now this year it's mostly about doing stuff with the band, but yeah, definitely we do sometimes. And for example, Mörker, the drummer, he's got a nice house outside of Helsinki with sauna and everything, and he's got these evenings when he invites all of the band to his place, and we do some barbecue and go to the sauna and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely we do. But now it's been mostly about the band all the time because we have so much to do with the
so
release.
so you say you started recording this album at the beginning of the year. This actually will segue us into another part of this discussion.
Yeah.
Was the album finished before everything started with the lockdown, or did you have to get creative when you were finishing the album and be like, hey, we have to finish this thing while we're in quarantine?
Yeah, well, it was written before the whole thing went down. We actually had sort of everything done. I think we were putting the last pieces of the puzzle together right around the time about when 70,000 Tons of Metal happened. And that was the time when I first started hearing rumors about the coronavirus. During that, those travel days, there was actually, you could see it already on the cruise that there was lots of like hand sanitation stations, like all over the boat and stuff like that. So you could actually, there was something in the air that something is about to happen. But we had sort of everything written by then, and I think a couple of weeks later we actually had the last song was done. So there was like small things only. But actually, when we went into the studio, we recorded the drums a little bit before everything, and then there was no lockdown. Then everything was working normally. But when we started with the guitar sessions, the lockdown came, and Skrymer, the guitar player that lives in Germany, actually, he came to Helsinki like 2 days before the lockdown, I think, and he came from this area in Germany where the pandemic was worst. So he was actually not allowed to enter the studio because the studio had so much, people working there that he couldn't enter. So he had to record his guitar at a friend's place in Helsinki. So it's strange because he flew all the way from Germany to come and to record them, and then he couldn't record them. So he could have actually recorded them in Germany as well, and
Wow.
But yeah, it happened actually sort of the day after he came to Finland. The whole lockdown situation started, and it was sort of throughout the whole recording process. The lockdown was there, but it was pretty easy because we where it was only us and the technician there in the studio, so you could actually come and go as well as long as you didn't bring any outside people. You know, we couldn't have more than like 5 people in the studio or something like that. So the whole band couldn't really be there at the same time, but still we were able to record our parts. For me, it was really cool actually to record the vocals because it was only me and the technician there for 3.5 days. We were just like, and I got so much done in those days. And you know, when I got home from the studio as well, there was nowhere to go. You know, you couldn't go out to eat. You couldn't go for a beer with a friend or anything. So it was just like straight to bed and up the next day to go back in the studio again. So it was sort of helped us concentrate in a way.
Yeah, I completely understand that. For Steph and I at In Symmetry Creations, we do a lot of Comic-Cons and whatnot in the U.S. And we actually had at one point 14 shows that had been canceled from, you know, west coast of the country to the east coast of the country. And we found ourselves, like you said, being very concentrated on, okay, let's just write some more. Let's create more content so that we can do more things.
Yeah.
Like you said, there weren't things to do. How extreme did the lockdown get for you? Were you like, dang, I'm just got to sit in my house when you were done recording? Did you have a period where you had to just sit in your house for a month at a time, or?
Yeah, I actually was because I was in Helsinki recording the album, but they closed the borders to Helsinki. So they had all trains, all traffic, everything you had to show. You know, there was police at the sort of border outside. So there was like Helsinki was closed. So there was like a perimeter around Helsinki that you actually had to show ID to show that you actually live outside of Helsinki, or that you have a genuine reason. You had to like paperwork from your boss or something that you actually have something to do. So yeah, it got quite extreme, and that also meant that they recommended me to go into quarantine as well. So I did 4 weeks. I was here at home, sitting in the spot where I'm sitting right now, for 4 weeks. But that was actually because we started mixing the album, and we actually figured out a way to work around the mixing, so I could actually sit here at home and work through my own stereo, and we took control of the studio computer, and we could actually mix it from home through the studio.
That's
so
awesome.
we streamed the screens, we streamed the audio to our computers and our workstations at home. So we actually sort of distance mixed the whole album, which was
that's great, because I can tell you that the album itself, the mix, actually sounds immaculate. Like, I really think the production is one of the best, maybe even the best from a production standpoint in the FINNTROLL catalog. So that may be a good reason why, because you guys had so much time to be able to put into it.
Yeah, and at this time, for example, Blood-Sweat album, we went like week over, with the recording, because there was so much bad things happening. We lost lots of tracks and stuff like that. We needed to re-record big chunks of the album, and we just, lagged behind. This album, we were actually spot on with all the recordings. There was not a day over, no nothing. So we actually could start, the mixing, and actually use all those mixing days to mix it, and it was really easy because we could also cram in just like a couple of hours session between. The studio had like a blank spot in the afternoon or something. We could actually take control of the computer and do something for a couple of hours, even though it wasn't our day wasn't scheduled or something like that. So we actually had lots of more time to do that usually.
So we're talking about the lockdown and COVID and the way everything has changed this year for you. What do you think is the most positive thing that has come for you out of being in lockdown? I know that sounds like an odd question, but like, you could say, hey, I got a chance to focus more on this, or I got to get more sleep, or, what do you think has been something that has changed in your life for the positive during this time period?
Yeah, it's weird to talk about positive things coming out of this tragedy, but I really have to say, for example, for me, I sort of felt last year that I'm gonna get some kind of burnout and stuff like that from all these different projects I had, and while touring with 2 or 3 bands at the same time. So yeah, I definitely needed a break, from and to be home a little bit, but also the main thing that I really got out of this was probably because I've been thinking about. Well, I've been for a couple of years now. I've been as a screaming, growling teacher, and I've been working like workshops and traveling for those workshops over here in Finland, doing like a weekend workshop with young people. And but now I could actually take the next step because I've been thinking about doing also virtually during like through Skype or something like that. And I actually got the time now. I had to figure out something because there were so many gigs canceled that I needed to figure something out that I actually can pay my rent with. And this was actually really good. So I actually sort of started the whole like online academy that I have going on right now. So yeah, so that was a really, really, really cool thing to do, and that's something that I probably will do in the future as well, and maybe also on tours. Maybe have some people over to give them lessons on tour and stuff like that. I really got that going, so that's one of the really positive things for me at least.
So if somebody was listening to this podcast and they were like, "Holy crap, there's an academy online with the vocalist of FINNTROLL," what would you say to them if they were interested in joining in with your academy? Is there what would your pitch be? What would you think they would get out of it? And how would they get in contact with you to be able to become a part of your academy?
Well, yeah, I sort of put it out there on Facebook. I have this page called "Shout Your Lungs Out Safely." That that's good. But yeah, that's how you can find me, and like direct message me, and that's and we can set something up. Yeah, but yeah, shout your lungs out safely. That's my
Shout your lungs out safely. Being a vocalist myself, I completely can I can agree with. I can feel that one.
Yeah. And also, to my official pages as well, I have this Mathias Vreth Lilmons on Instagram and on Facebook as well. So through that also people can contact me. So it's really these are all the time also face to face. So there's not like group chats or anything. It's hands on, person to person.
So you said that you haven't been listening to a whole lot of other music right now. And obviously you're in a bunch of other bands and you other projects. Whether it is something you were listening to or it's one of your other bands, for someone again who's listening to this and you're like, hey, I want to make sure that not only do they listen to FINNTROLL, but they listen to X. Is there anything about any of the other projects that you are a part of that you want to make sure that other people can go and be like, yeah, I need to go check out these other things that you're involved in?
Yeah, definitely. I really want to to point out that I released in May, I think it was 8th of May, a full-length album with a old school Finnish melodic black metal band called And Oceans. That
really, that's awesome.
Yeah, I hadn't released anything in 18 years, so I joined the band. Well, they're good friends of mine, and I had some bands with some of the other guys in the band as well. So they've known guys from before, and they're from my hometown, so I've known them since I was a teenager. But yeah, I joined them last year, and we actually released the first full-length album with And Oceans since 18 years. So that's something I really want everyone to check out as well. I also have a really cool punk band right now. It's called Dispute, Swedish crust D-beat kind of thingy that actually has got a really, really good feedback over there in the States. We have two main markets. That's the UK and the States, it seems. So every other album goes to the States, and the other one goes to UK. So yeah.
So let's go back to with this being a FINNTROLL interview, and we're kind of wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the brand new album that's going to be coming out on September 18th. If you're someone that, let's say somebody was a fan of FINNTROLL in up to 2013, and then because it's been so long, they've kind of moved away from being a fan of the band, but you want to be able to bring it back in. What would you say to those people to try and bring them back into the fold and become a new fan of FINNTROLL again?
Well, yeah, this album, it's got that old school Finnish vibe to it, and also it sort of brought back the energy again. That's really what I really want to tell everybody, that we have that sound kind of like that old school flame is burning again, and that's really something that I enjoy as well. And also, it not even only like the old school FINNTROLL, it also went a little bit back, I think, to like end of 90s black metal, symphonic black metal, how it sounded, in Norway and Sweden in 98, 97, that part of, the black metal era. So yeah, it's for all those like old school FINNTROLL fans out there, this is definitely something to check out. And also, even for the ones that have been, on the 2000 side of FINNTROLL as well, well, let's say like the last 3 albums that are like those, there's also tons of goodies there in the album for them as well. So yeah, it's a really, really like diverse album in that kind of sense.
Yeah, and you know what? I completely agree with you on that. That's definitely the same vibe that I got. And as somebody without a dog in the fight, without some, I have no skin in this game to say something good about the album if I don't really feel it. What I really like about the album, like you said, is you've got like the original kind of folk metal sound, and then you have the recent albums that move a little bit away from that. And this album feels like it takes those two sides and pulls them together right in the middle. It's like a perfect marriage of the two, so that you're not. I don't want to, offending is not the right word, but you're not like losing the original fans. You're not losing the fans that you've gotten over the past decade or so. You're kind of saying, hey, we're going to take these two elements and bring them right in here together. There's going to be enough of the extreme and enough of the folk to satisfy both. So if you're definitely. If you're someone that's kind of, moved away from FINNTROLL in the last 7 years because you've, just listened to some other new music, it's definitely worth your while to go listen to Vreth and hear what these guys are doing. I'll tell you right now, when you hear the intro to the album, you're going to be like, this is not normal FINNTROLL, because it sounds like that intro should be a part of a movie soundtrack.
Yeah, definitely. That's Conan the Barbarian.
Yes, it sounds like it should be part of from a movie soundtrack, and then you jump right into the first song, and you're like, okay, this album has got to have a lot of fun stuff in store for me that I'm not expecting. So
yeah, definitely.
So is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners of the Midwest Metal Radio Show prior to us calling this thing a done interview? So, what is it you want to say to these guys?
Yeah, well, I really want to tell everyone that we are working our asses off to get out on tour right now. And, let's hope that we can make something happen as soon as possible in the States as well. And, Canada and all of the Americas. As soon as the borders open, we are going to start planning, because there have been plans already for coming over there and do a full tour like we usually do, and we are so looking forward to coming back. But as soon as the borders open, we are going to really start working on getting over there. So yeah.
Well, remember, when those borders open, make sure you get a date in Florida.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a date
There's
in
always
Florida.
one Florida, 1 or 2 Florida. It's always over there.
Good. That's where I'm at, and I definitely want to be able to see you guys. And you're one of the few bands. I've been a fan of FINNTROLL for over 20 years. You're one of the few bands that I've not been able to see live for whatever the reason is. So we've got to fix that. Either that, or fly me over to Finland, and I'll see you guys there. I mean, one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everyone. So this, like I said, again, my name is Matt Knowles. I am guest hosting today. I guest hosted today for Jay Wendell from the Midwest Metal Show. I appreciate him giving me the opportunity to do this. I appreciate my man Mathias Vreth from FINNTROLL, who is here promoting their brand new album that's going to be coming out September 18th. They've got 2 videos out right now, Ormfolk and Forzen, which are great videos if you want to get a taste of the what's going to be on the new album. One thing I will definitely say is, just because you hear those 2 songs, that doesn't mean that that's everything you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of other tricks and treats and other things just in time for Halloween. Vreth, you got anything last you want to say, and then we can get on out of here.
All right. Thank you so much, and check out the new album and the new singles, and see you on the road, hopefully.
All right, sounds good. So I'm gonna stop the recording here, and then we can hang on for just a minute.